to Obscurus Gaming, and today we are reviewing another game that was shadow dropped during the Nintendo Direct just last week, kind of like Penny's Big Breakaway, except today I'm reviewing Suika game, the multiplayer mode, which is essentially the updated version of the same game released back in Japan in 2021. This sent me down a rabbit hole of why this seemingly little puzzle game was getting so much attention by Nintendo, and the reason is super interesting, which I'll talk about in a second. So much so that I eventually found myself playing a Taylor Swift Flash version of it. And I'll put that footage at the end of the video, but I digress for now, and let's take a look at Suika game multiplayer mode for the Nintendo Switch. Now, what's more interesting than the game itself is where it actually comes from. Believe it or not, this is actually a port of a projector game from a Japanese company called Aladdin X. Or maybe Aladdin 10, I'm not exactly sure. The game was released as an app to anyone who bought the projector, but was popular enough that the company ported it over to Switch in 2021. It sat there for a couple years until some super popular streamers got a hold of it, and next thing you know, Suika game was being downloaded over 4 million times. It actually was the most downloaded eShop game in Japan for all of 2023. Anyways, because of this success, the developer decided to make a more in-depth multiplayer version of it, and that's the version you see here. In terms of gameplay, Suika game is conceptually about as simple as it gets. In single player, you will drop pieces of randomly generated fruit from the top of the screen. If two of the same fruit touch, they combine into a slightly larger piece of fruit based on the in-game scale shown here. This process repeats until you fill up your screen, causing an immediate game over. You'll be scored on how many pieces of fruit you're able to drop and combine, with the goal of getting as many watermelons as possible, which is the last fruit and the highest scoring one. At the end of a round, your score can be shared locally or online to a daily and monthly leaderboard. Now, the single-player version of what I just described has been out for a while, but this new version mentioned in the Nintendo Direct adds local multiplayer, with online coming as a free update in a couple months. When playing against someone, the game offers 3 modes: Original, Time Limit, and Attack. Original is just like it sounds, where you can each play your own box and compete for the highest score. Time Limit adds a greater sense of urgency, with fruit being auto-dropped at an ever-increasing rate over 5 minutes. Attack is where you basically do the same thing, but you fill up a little meter, and then you can send junk fruit to your opposing player. Attack is the game mode I found to be the most interesting since it adds a slight competitive real-time element to the formula, but I also really like Time Attack as it adds a level of chaos to the end of the countdown, which was enough to make it feel different enough as a game mode. In terms of my final thoughts on the gameplay, Suika game is just a fun little pick up and play game, where if you have a few minutes to kill, just like you would with a game on your phone, you might decide to play it. But now with multiplayer mode, the game is elevated just a little bit where you can actually have some fun playing this locally on a TV with friends, even if it's just for a couple hours or so, which normally would be a problem. But for $5, I don't think I can complain about this at all, but I am curious if this concept could be developed into a more fuller game in the future. The game in general is just kind of super weird to give a score to because of its price, but it comes in at a 70, which feels about right. Now, when reading about the history of Suika game for this review, and yes, the game did actually come from a projector, I also came across a ton of knockoff versions of the game, which aren't good, but some were entertaining, like the Taylor Swift version. Instead of fruit combining into larger fruit, each photo of Taylor combines into the next album. It's really dumb, but the fact it exists I think shows you how popular this game has become. This makes me think what other weird combinations, official or not, will be released in the future. And I'm kind of curious what this phenomenon will become and why it exists in the first place. The review of this game really doesn't matter all that much when you think about it. It's more about the phenomenon that Suika game started as a projector game and became something that was downloaded over 4 million times on the eShop. But anyways, what I'm most interested in is how the online multiplayer will hold up once that is released in a couple of months. Thanks for watching this kind of weird review, everyone, and I'll catch you next time.